Legendary Passages, Episode 41, The Queen of Athens, Ariadne's Abandonment, from the Poems of Catullus. Last time we heard how Theseus obtained Ariadne's crown. This time we shall hear a bit more about the story of Ariadne. She stands on the shores of Naxos as Theseus sails away. Ariadne is unkempt, having just awoken, alone and abandoned. Catullus retells the story of the tribute of ewes bound for the Minotaur, for which Theseus had volunteered. When Ariadne first saw the prince, she was overwhelmed with desire, shot with Cupid's bow. She gave him the thread, and prayed fervently that he would kill the Minotaur and find his way out of the Labyrinth. After forsaking her own family and leaving with Theseus, she was to have been his wife and Queen of Athens. Instead, she is abandoned. So she calls on the Furies to curse him with complete and utter rage. Meanwhile, Theseus is sailing home to his father. Aegeus told him explicitly that he wished his son would not leave him. Above all, on his return, to change the sails on the mast, so that he would know his son yet lived. But after leaving Ariadne, Theseus had forgotten his pledge. Thinking his son dead, his father jumped to his own death, Ariadne's curse fulfilled. The Queen of Athens, a legendary passage from the Poems of Catullus, translated by A.S. Klein. Here are seen the wave-echoing shores of Naxos, Theseus aboard his ship, vanishing swiftly, watched by Ariadne, ungovernable passion in her heart, not yet believing that she sees what she does see, still only just awoken from deceptive sleep, finding herself abandoned wretchedly to empty sands. But uncaring, the hero fleeing strikes the deep with his oars, casting his vain promises to the stormy winds. The Minoan girl goes on gazing at the distance, with mournful eyes like the statue of a Bacchante. Gazes, alas, and swells with great waves of sorrow. No longer does the fine turban remain on her golden hair. No longer is she hidden by her lightly concealing dress. No longer does the shapely band hold her milk-white breasts. All of it scattered, slipping entirely from her body, plays about her feet in the salt flood. But not caring now for turban or flowering dress, the lost girl gazes towards you, Theseus, with all her heart, spirit, and mind. Wretched thing, for whom bright Venus reserved the thorny cares of constant mourning in her heart. From that time when it suited warlike Theseus, leaving the curving shores of Piraeus to reach the Cretan regions of the unbending king. Then forced by cruel plague, they say, as punishment, to absolve the murder of Androgeus. 10 chosen young men of Athens and 10 unmarried girls used to be given together as sacrifice to the Minotaur. With which evil the narrow walls were troubled until Theseus chose to offer himself for his dear Athens rather than such Athenian dead be carried undead to Crete. And so, in a swift ship with gentle breezes, he came to great Minos and his proud halls. As soon as the royal girl cast her eye on him with desire, she whom the chaste bed nourished, breathing sweet perfumes in her mother's gentle embrace, even as Eurotas's streams surround a myrtle that sheds its varied colors on the spring breeze, she did not turn her blazing eyes away from him, till she concealed a flame through her whole body that burned utterly to the depths of her bones. Ah, sadly the boy incites inexorable passion in chaste hearts, he who mixes joy and pains for mortals, and she who rules Golgos, leafy Idalia, even she who shakes the mind of a smitten girl, how often sighing for a blonde-haired stranger. How many fears the girl suffers in her weak heart. How often she grows pallid, more so than pale gold. As Theseus went off eager to fight the savage monster, either death approached or fame's reward. Promising small gifts, not unwelcome or in vain, she made her prayers to the gods with closed lips. Now, as a storm uproots a quivering branch of oak, or a cone-bearing pine with resinous bark, on the heights of Mount Taurus, twisting its unconquered strength in the wind, it falls headlong, far off, plucked out by the roots, shattering anything and everything in its way. So Theseus upended the conquered body of the beast, its useless horns overthrown, emptied of breath. Then he turned back, unharmed, to great glory, guided by the wandering track of fine thread, so that his exit from the fickle labyrinth of the palace would not be prevented by some unnoticed error. But what should I relate, digressing further from my poem's theme? The girl, abandoning her father's sight, her sister's embraces, and lastly her mother's, she, wretched at her lost daughter's joy, and preferring the sweet love of Theseus to all this. Or her being carried by ship to Naxos' foaming shore, or her consort with uncaring heart vanishing, she conquered, her eyes softening to sleep. Often loud shrieks cried the frenzy in her ardent heart, poured out from the depths of her breast, and then she would climb the steep cliffs in her grief, where the vast sea surge stretches out to the view, then run against the waves to the salt tremor, holding her soft clothes above her naked calves, and call out mournfully this last complaint, a frozen sob issuing from her wet face. False Theseus, is this why you take me from my father's land, faithless man, to abandon me on a desert shore? Is this how you vanish, heedless of the gods' power? Ah, uncaring, bearing home your accursed perjuries? Nothing could alter the measure of your cruel mind? No mercy was near to you, inexorable man, that you might take pity on my heart. Yet once you made promises to me in that flattering voice. You told me to hope, not for this misery, but for joyful marriage, the longed-for wedding songs, all in vain, dispersed on the airy breezes. No woman should believe a man's pledges, or believe there's any truth to a man's words. When their minds are intent on their desire, they have no fear of oaths, don't spare their promises, but as soon as the lust of their eager mind is slaked, they fear no words, they care nothing for perjury. Surely I rescued you from the midst of the tempest of fate, and more, I gave up my half-brother, whom I abandoned to you with treachery at the end. For that I'm left to be torn apart by beasts, and prey to sea-birds unburied when dead in the scattered earth. What lioness whelped you under a desert rock? What sea conceived and spat you from foaming waves? What Syrtis, what fierce Scylla, what vast Charybdis, you who returned me to this, the gift of your sweet life? If marriage with me was not in your heart, because you feared your old man's cruel precepts, you could still have led me back to your house, where I could have served you, a slave happy in her task, washing your beautiful feet in clear water, covering your bed with purple fabric. But why complain to the uncaring wind in vain? It is beyond evil and without sense, unable to hear what is said, without voice to reply. It is already turning now towards mid-ocean, and nothing human appears in this waste of weed. So cruel chance taunts me in my last moments, even depriving my ears of my own lament. All-powerful Jupiter, if only the Athenian ships had not touched the shores of Knossos from the start, carrying their fatal cargo for the ungovernable bull, a faithless captain mooring his ropes to Crete, an evil guest, hiding a cruel purpose under a handsome appearance, finding rest in our halls. Now where can I return? What desperate hope depend on? Should I seek out the slopes of Ida? But what cruel sea, with its divisive depths of water, separates me from them? Or shall I hope for my father's help? Did I not leave him to follow a man stained with my brother's blood? Or should I trust a husband's love to console me, who hardly bends slow oars in running from me? More, I'm alive on a lonely island without shelter, and no escape seen from the encircling ocean waves. No way to fly, no hope, all is mute, all is deserted, all speaks of ruin. Yet still my eyes do not drop in death, not till my senses have left my weary body, till true justice is handed down by the gods, and the divine help I pray for in my last hour. So you, Eumenides, who punish by avenging the crimes of men, your foreheads crowned with snaky hair, bearing anger in your breaths, here, come to me, listen to my complaints, that I, wretched alas, force, weakened, burning out of the marrow of my bones, blind with mad rage, since these truths are born in the depths of my breast, You won't allow my lament to pass you by. But as Theseus left me alone, through his intent, goddesses, by that will, pursue him and his with murder." When these words had poured from her sad breast, the troubled girl praying for cruel actions, the chief of the gods nodded with unconquerable will, at which the earth and cruel sea trembled, and the glittering stars shook in the heavens. Now Theseus's mind was filled with a dark mist, and all the instructions he had held fixed in memory before this were erased from his thoughts, failing to raise the sweet signal to his mourning father when the harbor of Athens safely came in sight. For they say that when Aegeus parted from his son, as the goddess's ship left the city, he yielded him to wind's embrace with these words: "Son, more dear to me than my long life, son, whom I abandoned through chance uncertainty, lately returned to me in my last days of my old age, since my fate and your fierce virtue tear you away from me against my will, whose failing eyes are not yet sated with my dear son's face. I don't send you off happily with a joyful heart, or allow you to carry flags of good fortune, but start with the many sorrows of my mind, marring my white hairs with earth and sprinkled ashes, then hang unfinished canvas from the wandering mast, so the darkened sail of gloomy Spanish flax might speak the grief and passion in my mind. But if the one who dwells in sacred Eton, who promised to defend the people and city of Erechtheus, allows you to wet your hand with the blood of the bull, then make sure this command is done, buried in your remembering heart, not to be erased by time, that as soon as you set eyes on our hills, strip the dark fabric fully from the yards, and hoist white sails with your twisted ropes, so that seeing them from the first, I will know joy in my glad heart when a happy time reveals your return." These words to Theseus, once held constantly in mind, vanished like clouds of snow struck by a blast of wind on the summits of high mountains. But when his father, searching the view from the citadel's height, endless tears flooding his anxious eyes, first saw the sails of dark fabric, he threw himself head first from the height of the cliff, believing Theseus lost to inexorable fate. So fierce Theseus entered the palace in mourning for his father's death, and knew the same grief of mind that he had caused neglected Ariadne. She was gazing then where his ship had vanished, pondering the many cares in her wounded heart. But bright Bacchus hurries from elsewhere, with his chorus of satyrs and Silenes from Nyssa, seeking you, Ariadne, burning with love for you.